Hello there, my name is Vladimir Izmalkov, and today we will be talking about AI assistant tools for technical writers, specifically what tools you can use to start your journey or to improve your results working as a technical writer on some kind of documentation. Let's start right away. Well, first we will be talking about some low-level tools. You're just starting, it doesn't even feel like you're using AI, but they might use AI. You never know. Joking. Sometimes sometimes you have your doubts. Let's start with the spell checker tools. Those are one of the first tools I've been using with AI capabilities, well, specifically Grammarly and language tool. These are just spell checkers, basically system-wide spell checkers that try to intercept whatever you type in, mostly in your web browser. They don't work very well with integrated developer environments, IDEs, but they do work with some other programs and they might help you a lot, especially if you're a non-native speaker in the language you're using. They can help a lot with bringing your written communication style up to the level expected from technical writer. Yes, they're helping a lot to find these embarrassing typos, just to improve your writing, sometimes even rewriting sentences for you. I find it quite annoying how Grammarly integrates with some kind of a software. Sometimes it even brings system to a very slow pace, especially if you use a lot of resources. But they can be quite helpful. They have their niche. Well, others I didn't use that much, just by my own personal preferences. For example, syntax linter. I use Whale a lot by work, and I think it's a great tool. It has all kind of tests for style. Can has even spell checker, I think, built in with dictionaries. I'm not aware of actual AI usage in it, but I did use AI to actually work on its dictionary, basically to troubleshoot some spell checking errors and to troubleshoot the dictionary we have, to find better alternatives for dictionary. And I also used AI systems to improve the rules we have. Basically, we have lots of rules in our company to work with style guide checks, basically checking style guide compliance. So yeah, these rules can have quite interesting syntax sometimes involving some regular expressions, and I find that the AI systems are quite good at regular expressions and weird syntaxes, especially if they are popular on the internet. Also, systems like Pylint that are also quite simple, simply linting some code for you. Sometimes it's even Markdown. Uh, you can technically find some of these linters with AI capabilities. I haven't found any yet, but still, it's a great step to try and get your toes into something like a test for your own documentation. That will help you a lot, actually. If you have a lot of tests for your documentation, that genuinely can help you a lot with further automation and further guarantees, I would say, for your documentation. The autocomplete section, well, it's quite nice to have, especially if you have weird syntax, and sometimes it can help, but honestly, Markdown and other lightweight markup languages, they're quite simple. You don't need that much of syntactic help, syntactic sugar, or anything like autocomplete to work with them. So autocomplete is mostly useful for me with some examples when I'm trying to create some simple sample code in something like Python. Yeah, it can be quite helpful. But again, it's, since it's autocomplete works only, line wise usually, it doesn't help you all the way. It just helps you a little bit with boilerplate, with syntax, this kind of stuff. Well, you can use anything really. It depends on the environment you're using, the integrated developer environment, or is it even a web environment with a Copilot existing in some other web systems. What else you can do? Localization. Yeah, I've heard a lot about localization using AI, especially these crowd translation and translation management systems that they can use AI now to actually generate some baseline translation and then improve upon it. I've heard about it a lot. I never used them myself. Again, right now I'm not localizing my documentation to any other languages. And finally, terminology management. Yes, technically that is possible, and I find that even general use AI like ChatGPT or Claude is very good at terminology, and technically it can help you analyze the like upstream documentation to find some interesting edge cases in documentation, how you should apply it to your documentation. That's how I used it. But also you can honestly use these AI systems to check your documentation for consistency of the terminology. Sometimes capitalization might be flaky here and there. Sometimes you can even find some more meaningful errors, like you using different terms for more or less same concept. But don't expect too much out of it in this genre. Anyway, the low-level tools are supposed to be, safe playground for you just to try on. So my best advice, to try some spell checker if you need one. Some of them actually provide you with AI capabilities to rewrite, to proofread sentences, but I do find them sometimes misleading. Sometimes I notice that what they suggest is, yeah, I should probably not use it this way. And it's fine. It's actually trains you a little bit to have doubts about these suggestions. That's actually very useful. Let's move on to the next level, which is a medium level tools. Well, that's actually much more helpful. That's actually where I encourage everyone to go and try yourself. We having these very useful tools as standalone chatbots, for example, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and others. I find that these are actually most useful of them all. They probably bring the most, value for what you can expect spending on them, especially if you try them on, like all different tools and all different bots and models, and you decide what works best for you, for your use case, what you like more. For example, I do like how ChatGPT helps me sometimes rephrase something. Even the wording of ChatGPT, not when you ask it to generate something out of whim, just random sloppy file language. No, not that. But when you specifically ask it to rewrite some pieces of content that already exist in some kind of a specific manner. For example, you want more engagement, or you want more clarity, or you just want to proofread it. These specific applications, yeah, I do enjoy using ChatGPT for that. Gemini and Claude, though, I more enjoy using them for research rather than specifically rewriting capabilities or how they sound like. But still, they can do pretty good job at everything. And I want to highlight that one of the best features of these large language models that they have tremendous vocabulary, so you can use them to even explore your options, explore synonyms, explore different wording, alternative phrases, alternative terminology even. So yeah, it's actually a very, very good research tool too. Well, then we have IDEs with built-in chatbots. While the chatbot might be even the same, you can use Claude, ChatGPT, and some of these tools. The sheer fact that you integrate this into your working tool, especially if you already work in integrated developer environment, that's actually so helpful. I definitely recommend trying that. If you already work in an IDE, trying to bring AI closer to it. So instead of just switching to your web browser, going to something ChatGPT, it creates some kind of obstacle. Just working directly in your IDE on some text with these models, it can be actually very nice touch, very nice help to you incorporate these AI systems into your workflow. It improves, speed with which you work, and improves actually a lot of. It adds a lot of simplicity how to you manage the context of the task. So instead of copy and pasting and all that, you can work directly in your tool. That's actually great. There are some other examples. Well, I use mostly VS Code plus some plugin for Copilot, but there are a lot of different examples of using just that. There is, for example, a dedicated IDE for AI usage. I think it's Cursor, one of the most popular. Probably there are other alternatives too. What else? Well, integrated AI assisted workspaces. Oh, that's a weird category, really. I don't think there is an exhaustive list of all of them, and there is not a clear definition about what exactly I'm talking about here. But some of the notable examples that I've heard of, for example, Notebook LM, I've heard great things about its capability to work with a lot of text, a lot of source material, and to summarize it and to analyze it. Of course, you should not trust it all the way through, but I mean, what I've heard, it does pretty decent job at working with large quantities of content. Other notable mentions here: Notion AI and Atlassian Intelligence. Well, with some different degree of usefulness, but I haven't tried them in practice too much, even Atlassian, even though I have access to Jira. I don't know. I prefer my Jira as less as possible, but trusting AI to do my Jira, yeah, it's some level of trust that I don't have yet. I should work on that probably. What else do we have? The diagram and media generators. Well, on these medium level tools, I think people should start experimenting with generating content. For example, generating illustrations like the one you see on this slide. Just working on some pictures, just illustrations is already quite powerful tool, but there are so much more to that. You can work on videos with Veo and some other models. You can work some other content, even audio, I guess. You can work not in generating them, but also there is a way of AI is helping you some summarizing the content of a video. For example, a very long YouTube video, you can ask Gemini or some other model to just summarize it for you and provide you with some keynotes and stuff. That's actually very helpful and saves a lot of time, especially in our era when people tend to elongate the video so they took longer so they could have I guess more revenue from YouTube or something. I don't know, advertisement, I guess. What else? Well, medium two levels are about stepping in the ocean. So basically we don't want to go too deep into experimental stuff yet, and I believe these chatbots, either standalone or inside your own tooling like IDE, they're already incredibly helpful. They're already a really good step at actually trying what works, what not, which models work for you more, working with text, rewriting, even generating some text. So definitely recommend these for everyone. The next level, the high level tools, well, I cannot honestly recommend it for everyone, but it's up to you. Like, you should decide for yourself whether you want to go there or not. And on this level, we're talking about some agentic AI usage, most likely, and sometimes even orchestrating some AI agents, multi-agent systems. Well, me, notably, I use mostly my IDE VS Code with the Copilot plugin in agentic mode, and I find that it's immensely helpful. Like, it has so many different capabilities, and I will be showing them a little bit later, that I find it super helpful. I find this agentic mode actually, I don't know, it feels very liberating that you can make AI not just generate some response to your prompt, some text or some image, but it can actually do some meaningful work to go into your repository, to find the required materials, to go into internet basically and query some external websites, some external documentation, just look for a problem, just for troubleshooting or any other purposes, and then it can actually compile this information, produce some kind of a meaningful plan of action, and attack this plan with, again, meaningful practical steps, generating some code for you. So it can literally generate like many pages of your documentation, gathering information all around the internet and all around your own repositories and resources. Yeah, it's actually very, very powerful. One thing though, you should probably learn a little bit how to use agentic mode, and there are so many ways it could go wrong. Basically, there are some systems in place to make it more safe to use. For example, technically agentic mode can go and delete everything in your repo, right? So fortunately, there are some safeguards implemented in VS Code and another tooling for that can help you with limiting its power. And the limiting part is very, very important. You should start at very high restriction and only allow manually some of the more dangerous operations. And over the time, when you build your, I wouldn't say trust, but you build your awareness, build your expertise, you should experiment with more and more, things that you auto allow for this agentic mode. Basically, they won't ask for your permission anymore. But still, there should always be some kind of a safe net between, well, these agentic bots and a lot of troubles for you. That's totally my recommendation. One of the things that I prefer to do, for example, I prefer agentic systems do not like I prefer them not committing anything to the remote, not actually pushing any pull requests, commits, anything really, no, not even issues. I prefer just doing it myself and the agentic mode to work locally on my machine so I can verify everything before I publish it. That's my preference. That's what I feel most safe and preferable for me. But yeah, you can do your own. There are also some standalone agentic systems, obviously, that like Cloud Code that I've heard most about, some Devin that I haven't heard much about, but I guess it's very promising, and also some experimental tools to actually work with these frameworks of agentic agents, basically framework working with basically multi-agent systems and managing and orchestrating them. Well, that's quite advanced stuff, to be honest. It's quite experimental, so I definitely never tried them yet, and I can recommend trying them for your own, tasks and use cases if you want, but it's quite advanced, and whatever I can recommend you right now, it won't be, the thing in a couple of months. They're developing so fast nowadays. So yeah, in any case, it's not that helpful to recommend anything. You should try on your own. Well, there are some recommendations about adopting these tools. Uh, Adopting all of them is probably not advisable. You should start, just some long hanging fruits, basically something that is most useful for you, but also won't require a lot of effort. And my recommendations start with low level tools, just some spell checkers, linters, set them up, just some automation, not much. You can also use, some standalone chatbots for simpler prompts like rephrasing. Why not? Especially helpful if you're working with some regexes for linters and stuff like that. That I believe it's very good initial familiarization. Just chatbots are already quite powerful, and you can copy paste some context into it if you need. They can work quite efficiently with a lot of tasks. Like there will be a lot to explore. But if you want to go deeper, well, you have the medium level tools, as in at least trying integrating these AI systems into your professional tool that you're already using is a great step in improving your efficiency and exploring new horizons for you. But also you would be, start thinking about context management, what to actually show to your AI systems, what to provide them with as resources as the initial input. Why not? And well, I think this go deeper level is actually recommended for anyone, recommended for all the technical writers to at least explore and find something useful for them and find some combinations of tools that work for them, build their own, working scenarios. And the next stage is the way it all goes very fast but dangerous. I called it Engage Warp Drive. Basically, yes, these agentic tools on high level tooling, it's it can be very helpful, but it can be also very damaging. And which one would that be? That's really hard to say. There is no way, no good way to say that. So good luck, but experiment on your own. Exercise extreme caution, basically, and good luck. All I can say. So with that, I think we can talk about a little bit how I use this stuff. For example, for text generation, I can use chatbots, obviously. You can go and ask them, but I prefer not to do that. I just don't like, genuinely, I don't like the results usually. So I try not to use text generation at all, or if I need to do that, I try to do it in my IDE, in my controlled environment. So whatever I need to generate, for example, let's say I need a section in a document, right? So I go and first of all, I manage the context of this document. So I basically add the whole existing document into the context of this prompt. Why not? That will help the AI system determine what exactly the document we need to feed the section in. So it gives a lot of context already. And don't forget that actually we can create this project awareness in the AI systems by adding specific files, like some files called Cloud MD. I prefer like Agents MD or something like that. These files contain some kind of project specific data that helps the AI system to get better and better at recognizing some patterns, recognizing your product specificities and stuff like that. So I use this a lot in my repositories just to help AI systems to get better at solving the tasks I told them. And yeah, if you use that, if you use like the context of your page or your document or something like that, and you add the context specific to your project, the text generation should be pretty much there, as long as, again, you provide it with a good prompt. And the prompt should be very specific, should tell exactly what you want, what you expect from them, most of the requirements. So the context in the files will provide them with some answers, but in your prompt you should basically provide them with clues what questions do they need to ask. Okay, for the text rewriting stuff, well, I can also use the standalone chatbots, or I can just ask inside the IDE the same chatbot to do that for me. And like I said, I prefer ChatGPT model just to do the rewriting for me. It's very good at that. For summarization, well, actually, all of them are quite kind of good. But if I search on the internet for some content, I prefer Gemini. I think it has great capabilities in terms of YouTube video summarization and also searching over the internet, like researching some topics. So yeah, I use Gemini for that mostly, I guess. For the refactoring, well, I believe for that Claude, at least like Claude Sonnet or Claude Opus, is actually not that bad at refactoring my documentation, especially if you need to figure out some tricky terminology or stuff like that. Yeah, I use that especially in Agentic mode, so it can actually validate some stuff for me, maybe use grep or some other tools to find exactly all the cases that it need to address. It's quite good at figuring it all out. Really, I don't have to spell it out for it. For the automation part of things, well, again, you prefer to generate some Python scripts that I can run or some CI/CD pipelines, and for that, most of them are quite good. I've used ChatGPT, I've used Claude. They're quite good at Python and CI/CD pipelines, especially on the level that might be required by a technical writer. So feel free to use any. For the explanation part, well, it's a nice thing. It really depends what kind of explanation you're looking for. If it's some code explanation, Claude, I think it's doing quite good at that, and I'm using that. If I'm searching over the internet, some new technology or something I'm rarely familiar with, I can use Gemini. And so basically, these two are my weapon of choice, I guess. And for troubleshooting, well, it depends. Sometimes I find that ChatGPT provides a very good experience with troubleshooting. For some reason, it worked for me much better than Gemini, and I don't think I ever tried Claude for troubleshooting. Well, with having that, let's actually check out how it all looks like for the AI usage. So this is the VS Code I have. Basically, this is my working environment at the moment. This is Ubuntu with VS Code, and we have some chat window on the right. That's how Copilot looks like in VS Code. Basically, I can show you that I'm using this plugin, GitHub Copilot Chat. I think it's a very popular one, probably even official one. Yeah. Something very mainstream one. And I find it very, very nice, actually very, very useful. So basically we have a list of sessions. Right now we're in a new chat, so well, I can use it. And the interface is very intuitive, really. If you look at it, it's super simple. You can add files here for context. For example, I have the index file added here, so I can click this, and this file will be added to the context, or I can click here, so it will be excluded. If I need some other file, well, I navigate to that file in my VS Code, and now I can add it to, like this. So it's super simple how to do that. What else? We have this, we have this file to manually add some file, this button, sorry, to manually add some file into context, which I rarely use actually. It's much more complicated. You need to find it right here and type it. Yeah, you basically, whatever files you're working on in your VS Code, you can find them easily right here. And the most importantly, there is this switch, agent, ask, and plan. These are different modes you can work with. Agent mode, just simple, chat prompting, or planning phase, right? Quite useful. And this is the switch between models available. These models are available to me. We have an enterprise subscription from my company, so Yeah, I guess if you use like a free or personal subscription, there could be different set of models, and also they change quite a lot. Like the models themselves, they get updated and installed. But you have to notice that there are a bunch of them. There are different versions, of course. Quite often you find that the latest version works best, but not always. And some of them, well, they take 3x somewhere. You see, like here. That means that queries or prompts you send with this particular model will cost you 3 times more than it would cost you some other like 1x stuff. For example, for Claude 4.6, we have Opus and Sonnet. You see different prices here. So they specifically were built for that. So Sonnet is a little bit simpler than that, like a little bit less smart, I guess, but it costs 3 times lower. And Opus is the smartest of them available to me, at least. So this is how it works. I select the model. In this case, it would be, for example, Sonnet 4.6. I select which mode do I want. Let's call it agent mode. So agentic mode of its usage. I believe it's the most powerful one. And also I want to show you this button, which shows you how much budget I have, basically. As you can see, I've already used almost all my premium requests, so I won't be doing a lot of requests right now. But the allowance will reset itself on the very first date of the next month, so it's okay. What else do we need? We need the prompt. Only the most important thing. What do we want to do? Well, in this particular scenario, let's say we have this deploy guide, or like deployment guide for Charmed Apache Kafka. Let's say we want to double check this. Basically, the version we're installing, we already have a stable version. We want to update this document to specifically installing the stable version instead of the edge. So why don't we just type it in, right? So you can type in any form, like let's update, or I want you to update, or just update this and that. It doesn't really matter. So update the document to deploy and Apache Kafka from stable, I think it's called risk actually. We can call it that. I think it will figure out. That's what's great about it, the adaptability of this interface. You can actually be a little bit less concrete with that, and it will figure it out. But the more concrete you are, the more chances you have, basically, the more probability you have of it actually succeeding, because there are so many different ways it can interpret. Let's remove this index.md because it won't be useful for us. We will only use the deploy.md. So from stable risk instead of H. What else we can do about it? Double check the charm that the stable version exists, and also test the deployment in a multi-pass virtual machine. Well, I'm just playing out here. We don't really need to do it like that, but I'm just trying to show you how agentic mode would work with that. You see, what we have right now is a very short, very dense prompt with a lot of instructions. Like it needs to update the document to figure out what to deploy and how, and then it needs to double check the existing, catalog of these charms that we are deploying, that the version exists. And also it needs to test that the deployment works. Make sure the comments are correct. And also I would like it to check the output. Check the output of the comments in the document. That's a little bit, unnecessary, but I think it will figure it out. So basically what I wanted to do is to update this document to deploy not the edge risk version, but the stable. It's right here, basically. And maybe somewhere down there. Yeah, like this, for example. But most importantly, also, there is this output that says that it's an edge. And since we updated the command, it will need to update it to stable. But what I did ask it to do is not just update it from edge to stable, but to try to deploy it in a virtual machine on my laptop and see what output would be there, and then, well, basically update the output accordingly. I think this should work, at least I hope so, and I think it should figure out, from my experience, it should figure out, even from this not so great of a prompt, it should figure out what to do and do it. Let's see how it works, and it will take a while. Yep. So first of all, it's thinking, right? We need to give it the time to think. Now it built this to-do list. Basically, you can already just see for yourself what it plans to do. Let's check it out. Basically, check Cham for stable Kafka channel. Well, seems reasonable. That's what I asked it to do. Update deploy MD to use a stable channel. That's great. Set up multipass VM for testing. Sounds good. Test deployment commands in VM. Sounds good. And compare the command output with the document. That sounds like a good plan to me. I'm not even entirely sure how would I improve it out of the way. So you see, this is the first command it asks for approval for. To deploy, the multipass list will show, just a list of virtual machines already deployed, and then yeah, we just check the list, literally, not so much more than that. We allow this command and it does that. We can even check the output right here, no instances found. So no instances yet deployed. And it continues, and now we have this to check for the free space. Let's do that. It's actually pretty good that it checks for free space, right? Now it launches this virtual machine. Let's allow it. Creating a virtual machine is quite a lot of space. I hope it won't. I hope I won't run out of free space on my laptop for this. But yeah, it will take a while. So basically, as you can see, it takes quite a lot of initiative here. For example, it checked for free space on my disk before starting the virtual machine, which is actually pretty good. Like it's brilliant that it figured it out. I sometimes have the issue of not having enough free space, so it's great that it figured it out. Interestingly enough, you cannot expect it to do it every time. It's non-deterministic, it's probabilistic, so there is a high chance, I guess, for it to do that, but it's not a script, it's not an algorithm. It just out of the blue decided to do that, and it's great that it did. Yeah, it could take a while to complete this step, but the important part here is that we have a plan. We're moving through this plan, and so far, sounds pretty good. Let's see what it actually saw when. Let's check what it saw when it checked the Cham Hub. Yep, it can see for stable existing Cham Hub with revision. Yeah, I think even the revision number is great here. So it didn't provide us yet with anything meaningful in terms of changes, but as soon as it does, it will show us, when it completes, it will show us what exact changes and which file it produced, which actually is great. I usually double check with my just Git what kind of changes to expect in the repo, and I think that's all we need to know. We just need to wait for it to complete. We don't need to check every step, right? But we need to monitor the commands in case it needs our approval for any commands. And as soon as it's all done, we will be able to see the changes. We need to review the changes, of course, prior to committing them and publishing them. But that's really how it works. You have this interesting chat interface with a lot of interesting buttons to manage your context, manage your models. Everything is right there. And you can see, this is, for example, the context manager window. You can see basically how much context you're using. We're using pretty, small amount of it. We have some room to spare, which is good. But just keep in mind, the longer you go in this session, the more context you will have. It builds up basically. And at some point, it could start forgetting things that you would, just using in this chat because the context window is limited. Basically, you have these 200,000 tokens here for this particular version of the model. It's always limited to some number, so it's inevitable that at some point you will run out of it, so it will start applying some algorithms to compact the data and to basically forget stuff that you already talked about. And it's fine, you just have to expect that and manage this as you see fit. And For that, you actually have this Claude MD file or Agents MD file, and you also provide additional context in terms of your own documentation, so you can manage this context quite a lot. That's actually great. I think that's it. We don't need to wait for the virtual machine utilization because it will take a while, at least on my machine. And that's, I think, all I wanted to show you here. Let's move on. Yeah. Feel free to check out additional resources. Specifically, I have a few more videos. For example, technical writing career overview, the technical writer skill tree video, and guardrails and tips for AI-assisted technical writing. I totally recommend this last one. Also, feel free to check out my mentorship programs and contact me on LinkedIn. And thank you very much and have a nice day.